You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Wednesday, September 25th. The 49ers are trying to rekindle the spark for this team, but it won't be without some pain along the way. Joining me, as always, on a way back Wednesday is Rob Stats Guerrero. Rob, how are you doing today?
Terrible, Steph. How are you? Serious?
I've been trying to detach myself as much as I can from the feelings that I have for the 49ers right now. I'm trying to, not let it get to my personal life. So I'm okay, and I have enough distraction in my life right now that I'm okay, but I understand that's not the case for everyone, especially not the 49ers.
Especially after that putrid performance on Sunday. Do you realize it was harder to lose the game than win it? Like, the amount of things they had to do perfectly to lose that game would be more difficult than accidentally finding a way to win.
I'm sure you saw ESPN's win probability chart in that game. And I've mentioned it. Like, I watched this game knowing that they lost, but not knowing how they lost. And it was literally very late into the fourth quarter, and I'm like, how do they lose this game? Like, I'm still trying to figure it out. And yeah, I mean, obviously we know what happened, but you're right. There's a lot that this team had to do in order to lose, and hey, they did it. So we're just hoping that week 4 is not a repeat of week 3 for this team, but kind of under similar circumstances where we're going into it. You look at both teams on paper and you're looking at the 49ers thinking there's no way they actually lose this game. But of course, they're facing a team in the Patriots that are 1-2 right now, same record as them. So, yeah, anything could definitely happen. So they got to get their ducks in a row in this game. But the unfortunate thing for the 49ers, Rob, is I don't know what the opposite of injury luck is. I guess injury unluck, although that doesn't really have the same ring to it, does it? But that's exactly what the 49ers are dealing with right now. Injury unluck. And I would have to say at this point, it's starting to get to a point where it's a little demoralizing for this team. Look, you started the season without Christian McCaffrey. That's one thing. That's obviously a huge blow to your team. And he's seeing specialists in Germany right now. And then, this season, you also lose Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, at least for George Kittle, hopefully just one game, Deebo for a few. And now Javon Hargrave out for the season with a partially torn tricep. That one felt like a different kind of blow, just knowing that he's out for the season. And honestly, I thought he had a pretty good game against the Rams, and so it was unfortunate to see him go out, especially how thin the 49ers are at defensive tackle right now.
That's obviously you're concerned for him and crushed for him, but this is the spot now where now you're talking about moving Yetur Gross-Matos to the interior, or you're really counting on Kalia Davis to come back in the middle of the season off of IR. And like, not only does Kalia Davis have to stay healthy, but also has to play well. Like, you were paying Javon Hargrave what you were paying him for a reason. And now that he's not going to be there for the rest of the year, I mean, that makes their run defense, calls it into question. It was already, iffy to begin with. And now it's going to be even more of a thing. And I'm worried about the game on Sunday because we know the Patriots are going to run the ball with Ramondre Stevenson.
Well, I definitely do want to talk about the 49ers run defense in this show, so we'll save that. But Christian McCaffrey, when you saw that he was going to Germany, I saw your tweet and you said, "Oh, like, this can't be good. This feels like a last ditch effort to try to play this season." And I don't always agree with you, Rob, but when I saw that and just like my negative feelings for this team right now, like, I just not getting good vibes. Like, I kind of agreed with you on that one. And look, it's now been a couple more days. We've gotten a little more clarity as to why he went to Germany in the first place. Do you still feel that way, or did it make you feel better that maybe he's getting the treatment in Germany that he can't get here?
I'll say a sentence out loud and you tell me how it makes you feel. Christian McCaffrey, the 49ers injured running back, took a international trip in the middle of the season to get a treatment that is not approved in America, but everything with his Achilles is going just fine. Does that sound like a logical kind of statement? How does that make you feel?
On the surface, that doesn't make me feel great. But I did think about this. Like, we know the type of athlete or just like the mentality that Christian McCaffrey has. He wants to get back out on the field. And so I think he's doing everything in his power to try to make that happen, because he literally like can't live without being out there on the field for this team. So I think for him, he has a greater sense of urgency to speed this process along. And so I see it from that standpoint. That makes me feel a little bit better, that I remember Christian McCaffrey, the person, can't stand to not be on the field. So this is his way of trying to get back out there.
That is a very reasonable, positive way to put it. I look at this more as a Hail Mary, as a hey, if I'm gonna have to get surgery, at least let me try this treatment in Germany, right? I'm gonna lose my season anyway. Let me throw up a Hail Mary and maybe it comes out to work. Uh, It seems like with an Achilles injury, what you need to do is rest if it's not torn. And that's like the thing that Christian McCaffrey is the worst at doing.
It's the reason we're here today talking about him going to Germany, because I think he pushed himself and he pushed this Achilles probably a little harder than he should have, trying to get back out on the field. And so again, yes, I do think it's a last ditch effort for him to just get back on the field before, I don't know, the timetable, whatever timetable they gave him, or if there even is a timetable, um, to I don't know, just try to speed it along, because he wants to be out there. But I'm going with the more positive approach here. At the end of the day, we might both be delusional. I can live with that. But yeah, hopefully that whatever he's doing in Germany does help him get back out there sooner. I do feel like the 49ers can live without Christian McCaffrey a little bit. I mean, I think Jordan Mason has done well, obviously, in the run game. I think in week 3, we saw him more involved in the passing game as well. So I think that was nice to see. They're gonna, Mason's now gonna be the guy, so you can kind of prepare for that. But some of these other injuries, in addition to all the ones that they've already kind of been dealing with, I think have been more demoralizing that I would have liked. And one thing that Kyle Shanahan, kind of said, kind of stuck with me, because yesterday he spoke with the media and he said, quote, "This year has been totally different to start out, so that's been real tough. I'd like to try to stay positive with it, that all of them eventually are going to come back, but that probably changed with Hargrave today. So that was a tough pill to swallow there," end quote. And of course, like, he was asked about just like the lack of injury luck they're having this season compared to last year. To hear the head coach say, "I'd like to try to stay positive," um, but there's a but in there. Like, clearly, I mean, even he is feeling a little demoralized, I think, with just how this season is starting with some of the key injuries.
Well, that was Kyle's message when these started happening was, yeah, it sucks, but they're all coming back at some point, which is a good way to look at it. If you have a lot of injuries, at least they weren't season ending. But now with the Hargrave thing, like he said, obviously that's a far more serious one. We don't know what's up with Christian McCaffrey. That could be devastating to the offense. So it's sort of starting to turn into more dangerous territory. And of course, as the season goes along, you run out of games and time. So people have less time to recover. So injuries that might not necessarily be season ending if they had happened in September become season ending if they happen in December and January.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, as of right now, it seems like Kittle at least is going to be hopeful to practice this week, and hopefully that turns into him being hopeful to play on Sunday. Definitely missed him last week. And Debo, I think it probably another week for him, but you know that Debo will at least be coming back. I guess it's just concerning because you've dropped 2 games in a row and you still have to deal with some of these injuries. And I don't know, at least on the defensive side too, I don't think it's going to get any easier without Javon Hargrave. But they got to find a way. They have to find a way to turn it around. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, given the injuries to wide receiver like Debo, um, obviously we saw a lot of Juwan Jennings. That was nice. I think the expectation was that we would see more Jacob Cowing in this game, and largely in part to something that John Lynch himself said on KNBR. If you guys recall, he did say, Jacob Cowing is someone who may get more opportunities. Now, again, he did say may, so it wasn't like a definitive statement or anything like that, but it just sounded like John Lynch expected Jacob Cowing to get opportunities with this offense on Sunday. Of course, we know that didn't happen. We saw more of Ronnie Bell than we would have liked. And I saw this mailbag, Matt Barrow's mailbag on The Athletic, in which he was asked about this. And Matt Barrows said, quote, he also signaled on Friday that Cowing would get some opportunities on offense in Los Angeles. Cowing got none. I thought that was a rare and interesting disconnect between the 49ers front office and coaching staff. Rob, when I hear a beat writer say something like that, there's a rare and interesting disconnect. Like, I'm like, okay, so I'm not crazy. Like, clearly they're not on the same page, and even beat writer is kind of feeling the same way.
I thought it was interesting. First of all, I was hoping for that, and then when I heard Lynch say that on KMBR, I actually went and bet Jacob Cowing to score a touchdown because I was like, oh, they're going to find a way to be sneaky and do this thing. And I just wonder if it was maybe Kyle Shanahan, sort of flexing his muscle a little bit. He's very, I think, stubborn and sensitive. Like he understands sort of the politics. Like he's talked about, not every team is trying to win the Super Bowl every year. Like and I think he's accurate in that statement. He's like, some teams are just happy to be there. Some teams are actually going for it. He's very conscious of like the politics of the front office and things like that. And I wonder if maybe he didn't like John Lynch going on the radio on Friday and announcing to the world, hey, this rookie that no one's ever seen before, that you have no way to prepare for, well, get ready. He's going to be on the field. And maybe Kyle didn't like that and said, you know what? I'm the coach of this team. I'll decide who gets on the field, not my GM in a radio interview on Friday. So we're going to go Ronnie Bell, 30 snaps in the game, Chris Conley, 20 snaps, and Jacob Cowing, you could watch Ronnie Bell drop it in a critical situation in the fourth quarter.
That's very much big brain by Kyle Shanahan. And again, that's why I thought it was hilarious. He threw his arms up in the air when Ronnie Bell didn't catch that ball, because it's like, it's kind of your fault. He was in there. That it was your decision, but all right.
Why not have Conley in there? Even if you don't want to give Cowing a snap, right? He's a rookie. He doesn't know the system, whatever, which that's a whole other topic for discussion. But like what Chris Conley could do, they like Conley supposedly, but it's stunning to me. Like, just play your best guys, dude. It's not just play your best guys. Like, it's stunning that they seemingly have this problem over and over and over again. And if your system is so complicated and so convoluted that rookies cannot understand it 3 weeks into the year, the problem is the system. It's not the rookies. It's on you to have a system and to be able to explain it in a way that they can be functional and contribute to your team. It doesn't do you any good to draft all these guys and then not be able to use them because, our system's really hard and they're rookie. Like, no.
Again, I think it speaks to the stubbornness of Kyle Shanahan that, it's like, hey, this is the playbook. If you don't get it, you're not getting on the field. And I just keep pointing out the fact that it didn't always used to be like that. Like, literally in Kyle's first season, you had to play Deebo Samuel. You had to play George Kittle in their rookie years. And somehow those guys still were able to produce and help the team, right? Help the offense. And they looked great. So I don't know. I just don't know if I buy that excuse. If you feel like someone can help you win games, it might not always look pretty, it might not be perfect. I obviously blocking is a huge thing to Kyle Shanahan, to the offense, and that might not be the prettiest right out the gate for a lot of these rookies. They really have to build that. But I mean, I think we know like Cowan could have probably caught that ball, and it's not just the rookie argument, right? Like, to your point, Chris Conley could have just as easily been out there and probably made that catch. He's looked good in his opportunities. So, yeah, I guess it doesn't really make sense. But when Kyle Shanahan was asked about Jacob Cowan specifically, he said, quote, he's still working to get out there. He is trying to get more comfortable with the offense and just earn a role with it. He gets closer and closer each week, still got a bit to go through. There's a lot of reasons that go into it, but he hasn't been able to make his way into that group yet. And the more he gets comfortable with the offense and the more consistent he gets, then he'll earn those opportunities, end quote. Again, it just feels like a message to that player, like indirectly, like saying, hey, like, no, you haven't earned your snaps yet.
But
And then
Ronnie
at the
Bell
same time,
has.
yeah, exactly.
Like by fumbling punt returns left, right, and center last year. Is that how Ronnie Bell earned it? And I would love to know, what are those lots of reasons that go into it, Kyle? What are they? Like, you know better than us. I'm willing to say that, but you have to explain it to us because you at least owe us an explanation. If he like just told us what was going on, I would be a lot less frustrated by this whole thing. But the fact that he's just like, reasons, because, like, what the
Well,
hell is
I mean,
that?
maybe the media should have like followed up on that one.
Well,
I was
sorry.
so upset to see that someone literally asked, and I'm trying to find it. Someone asked in this presser on Monday after the 49ers lost in embarrassing fashion to the Rams. They asked, "Have you ever gotten a book recommendation from Nick Bosa?" Who fucking cares? Why are you? That's like an off-season question when there's nothing going on. I'm trying to find it, but yeah, someone asked that question. I don't know who it is. I like really like right now. That's what you're gonna ask.
Well, the funny thing
It's just
was
bad.
in the conference call, Kyle drops in injuries from the game, Javon Hargrave, and Brock Purdy is back. He's got an MRI, and we're hoping he could practice. And then there's 24 seconds of silence before somebody asks a question, and it's a Javon Hargrave question. Like, what? When he announces the starting quarterback might be injured and might not be able to practice, immediately the next question should be,
Seems serious.
what play did it happen on? How what did the MRI say? What did Brock tell you when he took? There should be 4 or 5 follow-up questions after that, not 24 seconds of silence where we all acknowledge, holy crap, this is news, and then we'll go to our regularly scheduled Javon Hargrave questions.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, the Javon Hargrave thing, bigger injury, but I would like to know the severity of the Brock Purdy injury. Back soreness, like, doesn't sound serious, of course, but that's sensitive as well. And
They
I know
always say that. Christian McCaffrey's injury wasn't
they're vague.
serious, remember?
They're super vague. Yeah. So it's probably best at this point to press them on it and try to get a little more information out of it. But yeah, I guess we'll see in practice what Brock Purdy's participation level is like. But yeah, we'll continue to wait on that. In the meantime, though, I want to talk about another unit for the 49ers that, to me has not looked great. I think you know what I'm going to mention here, Rob, and that is the not so special teams for the 49ers. It seemed like Kyle Shanahan maybe kind of sent a message to Brian Schneider with this quote when he was asked about special teams. He says, quote, I would always love to make plays and stuff on special teams, but the biggest thing is to not be one of the reasons that you lose. And those are 2 huge things, one in Minnesota and then yesterday on that fake punt. That's stuff we've got to be more prepared for, first as coaches, and get our guys ready for that a lot better than we did yesterday, end quote. Now, a lot of people took this as like, oh my God, like shots fired. He's calling out Brian Schneider. That is not enough for me. There needs to be more than this. And I think the first sentence here tells me a lot, I guess, about how Kyle Shanahan feels about special teams. And I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, oh yeah, I like to make play. Basically, what that first sentence said to me is, I'm okay with being mediocre on special teams as long as we are not bad to the point that we lose. Well, Kyle, the last 2 weeks, it has been a large part of the reason that you have lost. So what are you going to do about it? I don't think that calling Brian Schneider out is enough. If there's another special teams flub this season, he needs to be gone. Like after that game, I would have personally, I would have probably fired him after week 3, but I'm probably a little harsh on that. But I can't accept someone just being mediocre at their job and just being like, yeah, I'm fine with it. Only also because the offense has been so great in the past, the defense has been so great in the past that the margin for error for special teams probably a little bit bigger. Well, guess what? It's not so big anymore. And now you get the outcomes that you have the last 2 weeks because of it.
I've never heard a coach talk about any aspect of the team the way Kyle Shanahan has talked about special teams, not just or earlier this week, but in his entire tenure, because he's said that before. It's not the first time. I've never heard that before, Steph, where a coach is like, hey, just don't fuck it up. That's not no. And these guys love to sit here, Kyle, Fred Warner, and talk about the standard, right? The standard. We know what the standard is here. Well, the standard for the special teams has been just don't be the worst fucking unit in the league. And guess what? They are. This team hasn't had a punt return for a touchdown in 20 years. 20 years. Or a kick return. One of those. The last kick or return they had on special teams was Ted Ginn, and then they had I think Richie James had a kick return. That's it. Like, what are we talking about here? It's unacceptable. It is unacceptable. I would have cut Ronnie Bell immediately after the game. I would have used Ronnie Bell I would have made an example out of him to send a message to everybody else in the locker room. This is not okay. We need urgency here. Things have to change. None of this, we've been here before. No. You don't do your job, you're gone. And the same thing should have applied to Brian Schneider. What has Brian Schneider ever done to earn any grace with this team? Please tell me what it is.
Apparently, it's just Kyle Shanahan, not caring about special teams making plays. That's the only thing that's been his saving grace.
What does that say inside the clubhouse or the locker room, I should say, right? Well, who cares if you screw up because, he doesn't really care that much about it. Like, no, I've never heard a coach talk about a third of the team like that before. What kind of messages to send to the players on special teams? How hard are they going to work when all they know is, well, as long as we just make a tackle, doesn't matter if we're in the right run lane, doesn't matter anything. It's dumb.
What incentive does Brian Schneider have himself to even improve this special teams? I mean, now his back is against the wall. Now there's like a sense of urgency after dropping 2 games because of the unit. But if this was a standard, or if Kyle Shanahan had a higher standard for the unit all along, we would have probably never been in this situation to begin with. So yeah, I'm extremely frustrated, not just with Brian Schneider, but also Kyle Shanahan admission to just saying that he's fine with them being okay, average, as long as they don't lose the game. Like I've never heard anything like that before. And on my show on Monday with Weston, like he pointed out Antonio Pierce's comments from this past week too, and it's just an opposite, right? Because he was asked about players making business decisions, and he said, quote, I think there was definitely some individuals that made business decisions and will make business decisions going forward as well. That is exactly the stance that any team should have. As to your point, Rob, make an example out of people who aren't fitting in with your standards. But then again, Kyle Shanahan is a problem here because his standard is okay for special teams.
Jimmy Johnson famously cut a guy who was asleep in the meeting. The guy was asleep in the meeting and he cut him right away. And somebody said, what if Troy Aikman was asleep in the meeting? And he said, well, I'd wake him up and continue the meeting. Like, yeah, that's the difference. But that's what you do with the bottom of the roster guys. And make no mistake about it, Ronnie Bell is the bottom of the roster guy, and he should have been cut. He should be gone. Use at least get something good out of what happened, right? You can't go back and change the fact that Ronnie Bell dropped the ball, but at least maybe you can get some good out of it by cutting him and sending a message to everybody in that locker room. Wake the fuck up. Stop thinking you're so good and you can just turn this on. You know, Talanoa Hufanga was on KMBR yesterday, said, well, when we get everybody back healthy, we'll be ready to roll. First of all, there's no guarantee that ever happens. Second of all, you play games in the meantime that count, and you've already dropped 2 of them.
Yeah, that is pretty disappointing. But I think it speaks to the mindset of this team right now that there's just not that sense of urgency. And that is concerning. And it's been frustrating when the 49ers start seasons like this. Last season, when they started 5-0, was like a huge outlier because they almost always start slow under Kyle Shanahan. And it's kind of like this shrug. I don't know. We'll figure it out kind of attitude. And what about when it doesn't? That's what I'm concerned with. But look, I think we're on the same page, obviously, about Brian Schneider, me and you, Rob. And I think we're also on the same page about Nick Sorensen, on the other hand, because obviously I've seen a lot of blame to Nick Sorensen as well and his coaching with how the defense has looked so far. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve no blame at all, but I think we're giving him the benefit of the doubt. We're going to give him some time to acclimate. But yes, we also acknowledge that some things need a change in the meantime. Now, I think it's obvious that some of the things that need to change probably not going to happen overnight because it just feels like something that needs to be worked on over the course of a couple of weeks. But Rob, if you could have the 49ers defense fix one of their issues in week 4 against the Patriots, what would it be?
Issues against trips bunch coverage. It has been a problem with the Vikings, and it was a problem last week with the Rams. If you want to discombobulate the 49ers defense, the film shows what you do is put 3 wide receivers on one side of the field bunched together, or have 2 bunched together and then a third guy come in motion right before the snap and to make it a bunch. Because the 49ers secondary, to quote JT O'Sullivan, can't sort out who's who in the zoo. They don't know what to do. There's always 2 guys on one person, and somebody ends up running wide open down the field. We saw it on the critical third downs. That's what I mean. Other teams know that this is a problem for the 49ers because when they need a play, that's what they go to. The Vikings on 3rd and 7, when they were driving on their final drive, they kicked the field goal to make it a 2-score game. 3rd and 7, they went exactly to that. They had Powell wide open on the right. Darnold hit him for a first down. He wasn't even covered or touched at all. And the Rams, multiple times in this game, did the exact same thing. Bunch wide receivers or bunch receivers, and the 49ers defenders, they don't know what the hell is going on. Yeah. That, to me, speaks to a Sorensen issue. Players don't know what to do. And it's, you know what, like sometimes Kevin O'Connell, great offensive coordinator, he can break your defense. Kyle Shanahan does it to other teams all the time. Okay, it happened. You know, it sucks, but it happened. But to have it, the exact same thing happen the next week, and for it not to be corrected is hideously bad. It's hideously bad. There's no excuse for that. Figure it out. If we all can see it watching the film, I'm sure they see it. And the fact that they don't know how to fix it, that's scary to me.
Yeah, and to me, that's a clear like coaching thing that needs to improve, right? With this, and what I'm showing on the screen is just a series of clips posted by Rich Madrid, who went back and looked at how both D'Amico and 20. Oh, sorry.
Sorry about
here
that.
We go. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so he put this out because he went back and looked at how 2022 D'Amico and 2023 Steve Wilkes handled bunch in man coverage. He said in 2022 with Ryans, they play the way they do now, straight up man coverage on who you align over no matter what. In 2022, straight up, yeah. So it was just straight up man to man. I don't think he mentioned how Wilkes did it, but obviously, even with D'Amico, it's not so much the strategy because you see teams do this and they defend it well, even still, just like in 2022. But for some reason, it just doesn't look clean right now when the 49ers are doing it. And so to me, again, like I think that's an issue with coaching. It just does. It doesn't look like it feels natural to the players. Like they're thinking a second longer. And by that time, wide receivers are fast in this league. They run right past you. So I think obviously that needs to be a point of um, emphasis this week for this team. Now, what I'm going to say, Rob, is that I want to see the run defense improve for this team. And I think the reason for that is that should be the foundation of any defense. Ramondre Stevenson for the Patriots has been struggling after week 1, so I see kind of an opportunity here. In week 1 against the Bengals, he had 120 yards. Okay, that's good. In week 2, their leading rusher was Antonio Gibson, who's also been involved as of late. He had 96 yards in week 2. They both got stymied by the Jets defense in week 3. Gibson had 29 yards. Stevenson had 23 yards rushing. And also, sidebar, Stevenson has fumbled in 3 straight games, at least once. So, Fred, I'm going to need that peanut punch this week, Fred. And while you're at it, please maybe teach some of the other guys how to do it too, because that could definitely help some things out. But if we look at the 49ers run defense EPA ranks by year, dating back to 2021, they were second in run defense EPA, second in 2022, 26 in 2023. Of course, we know that's a forgettable year for the run defense, but through 3 games so far, they're even worse. They're 28th right now in run defense EPA. So that is definitely something that I think needs to improve. It's going to be an uphill battle because, obviously Javon Hargrave, one of those big guys in the middle, is not going to be there for you. But they got to figure it out, man, because if you can't stop the run, teams are like, you're not going to have any success defensively.
They're not going to figure it out. They can't. They don't have the players. If they could have figured it out, Steph, they would have figured it out last year. They couldn't figure it out last year either. Like, get better
players. But they had the players. You can argue that they had the players last year, right?
Well, then that makes me feel even worse because guess what?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. There's no excuses.
They don't have it. And that's why, there's no easy games on the schedule anymore because everybody's going to be able to run against us. And if you can run, you can use play action. You can get your quarterback time and get them comfortable and get them in a rhythm. They don't have the horses. And it's frustrating, but especially with Hargrave out, I don't see it.
I think one thing that's really frustrating with the defense, in particular the guys that they've kind of brought in as free agents, is in the past when the 49ers would bring in free agents, they really, really buy into the mindset of the defense, the identity of the defense. And I just don't think in the last couple years I've really seen that. Like, think about Chase Young when he joined, as via the trade last season. Everyone's thinking, oh, all these issues with Chase Young, but it's okay because he's with the 49ers now. He's going to buy into the locker room and their culture and this, that, and the third. That never happened with Chase Young. And I'm kind of seeing it so far with some of these new guys too. I hope I'm wrong. Again, it's just the first 3 weeks of the season, but Leonard Floyd, I thought he looked good in preseason training camp, but through 3 games, he's been super disappointing. He just does not look like a Niner. In the past, you see guys in this defense and you're like, yeah, they're playing the 49er way. Right now, I'm not seeing it with any of these new guys. So that's troubling to me because, again, I think that's part of coaching. You need to have an identity for these players to really latch on to. Fred has it. I think Nick Bosa has it. I think at times Mooney Ward, maybe even Lenore show some of that. But I'm just not seeing it from some of these other guys. And I think if you want to turn some things around with the current group of guys you have, you need to have those guys buy into your mindset. And I think that's what's troubling to me so far is that I'm not seeing it.
I was so wrong about Leonard Floyd. I was so excited when they got him. I was thinking all right, this is a proven guy that's produced before. All he's got to do is just be exactly the same guy and we'll be good. And he looks like a washed up veteran. He looks like a lot of the guys that they have brought in. Chase Young, Samson Ebukam, just these guys that don't really have an impact in the game. They're out there, they're trying their best, but they're not that. And it's incredibly frustrating because when you miss in the draft, you're supposed to pay in free agency to make up for it. Well, they missed on Drake Jackson, right? He's been nothing for them. So they had to pay money to get Leonard Floyd in here. And now they missed in free agency too. And it's just more of the same. It's just more of, well, save us, Nick Bosa, because nobody else can rush the passer on this team. And it's criminal that they have allowed it to get to a second contract with Nick Bosa. And they've really only had an effective pass rusher opposite him for 1 year. And it was his rookie year in 2019.
Yeah, and look, they've tried to find that same type of pass rusher opposite Bosa, that like D Ford, and they just have swung and missed. And yeah, that seems concerning to me. Again, like what doesn't make sense is he looked good in camp. I think in the limited preseason, snaps he got, he was fine. But yeah, through 3 games, small sample size, things could change, but it's not looking encouraging. So definitely concerned about that. And don't even get me started on Devondre Campbell, on the other hand, who he's simply just not it. Like he's not it. And I knew Dre Greenlaw was going to be hard shoes to fill. Like no one was going to be able to do that, but yikes, he's not even he's barely serviceable, especially in coverage. So
he's a liability.
they got a lot.
Yeah, they immediately targeted him. As soon as they saw the Niners were in man coverage, it was the immediate pass to Kyren Williams out of the backfield.
And teams are going to continue to do that. So
that's
why I'm having a hard time seeing this team turn it around, because I think it's just going to get it's going to keep piling up, unfortunately, I think. But really quickly, before we get into Way Back Wednesday, I want to remind you guys to download the Locker app and join the 49K League. Just as soon as you join, search the league name, 49K. And look, if you use the promo code WIN, they'll match your first deposit up to $100. Doesn't like some free money. And then also get some prop bets in. You have a chance at making some extra money as well. So download the Locker app today if you guys are interested. The link to download it is in the description of this video. Audio listeners, it'll be in the description of this podcast. But all right, Rob, let's get to Way Back Wednesday. All right, let's have some fun. All right, so, surprisingly, but maybe not surprisingly, the 49ers and the Patriots haven't played that many all-time games. They're 9-5, 14 total games between the two, just because Patriots are in the AFC, of course, but the 49ers have the edge, 9 wins, and then the Patriots have 5. I want to go back and talk about a much better time in 49ers history than we're experiencing right now. December 16th, 2012, in Gillette Stadium. Obviously, that's a huge place to play in, especially when you're talking about Tom Brady's Patriots, which we are right now, is a huge feat to play there. And the Patriots, under Tom Brady, just really hardly lost at that point in time. But enter Jim Harbaugh and Colin Kaepernick, who staved off a 48-point comeback by the Patriots and win in dramatic fashion. Lots of points between these two teams, 41-34. And the 49ers found a way to close it out, something that we're hoping that the 49ers can do on Sunday against the Patriots, because that's something they're lacking. But I do want to go back and just talk about some of the stats in this game. Colin Kaepernick threw for 4 touchdowns, 2 caught by Crabtree, who also had 107 yards receiving. Tom Brady had 443 yards passing. And both teams were pretty good at this point in time. New England's 10-4 and the 49ers 10-3 after this game. So it was a pretty hyped up game. What can you tell me about this one, Rob? Because I know you're like an encyclopedia for these things. What do you remember of this one?
So I remember this game vividly because I know you were probably 2 years old at the time.
Okay.
When I was watching this game, for me, it was kind of, hey, let's kind of see where the 49ers stack up because, yeah, they went to the NFC Championship game in 2011, but that was weird because they were coming off the lockout. And so it was like, is this real or were they just better at preparing during the lockout than other teams? And it was like, can they really do it again or was 2011 going to be a fluke? So here they come into New England in prime time and they come out and they are just on fire. This game was 31-3 in the third quarter. The 49ers were embarrassing Tom Brady and the Patriots in their own house. And then all of a sudden, it just goes into disaster mode for the 49ers. It started raining. Nobody could hold on to the football. It was pouring. And the Patriots come back and they are just tired. And it's like, oh my God, here we go. 31-9, 31-17, 31-24. What is happening? 38-31. 31-31. The Patriots come all the way back and they tie it with 6 minutes and 43 seconds left in the fourth quarter. And then two things happened. Back-to-back plays. First, we were talking about 49ers special teams. LaMichael James busts a long kick return after the Patriots tie it up. So just when the 49ers are like, oh my God, right? You're rocked back in the ring. And you're like, you're on your feet, but you're like just barely staying. One more little push and you're going down. And instead, LaMichael James busts a kick return, sets the 49ers up. And I believe it was the next play. Kaepernick drops back, hits Crabtree on a curl. They're in man coverage. It was a zero blitz, so there's no safety behind him. Crabtree makes the guy miss and just runs untouched into the end zone. And that was the play that put the 49ers ahead, and they ended up closing it out. That was the difference. Like they made those two plays despite all the crap that went on. They made those two plays when they needed to, and they escaped with a win. And that would have been a disaster of a loss. Can you imagine 31-3 in the third quarter and you lose? But they made those two plays and they get a win. It's a happy memory. Everybody's good. They didn't make those plays on Sunday against the Rams.
No, they did not. The Patriots scored 24 points in the fourth quarter alone in that game. So that's insane. And LaMichael James was a rookie this season as well. So he also contributed, of course, to the 49ers being able to push this one over the edge. So definitely a memorable one. And like I said, I remember it being a huge deal because it was so difficult to win in Gillette Stadium. Again, in December, it's raining, you got the elements working against you and you're playing against Tom freaking Brady. Like not anyone can do that. And of course, people had their thoughts on Colin Kaepernick, whether he was like legit or not. And I think that showed he was definitely legit and the right quarterback for this team. But yeah, that was a great memory. I was not 2 years old, despite Rob's belief. But I don't have the same memory as Rob. So
Brady threw 65 passes that night.
That is insane. 65 passes. Did you just remember that off the top of your head, by the way?
I didn't remember the point in time where the Patriots tied it up, and I didn't remember the actual number, but all the other stuff I remember because it was a big game for me. Like I really use that as a measuring stick of like, not only like are we good enough to compete with Tom Brady, but they were kicking the hell out of them through 3 quarters.
Yeah, they sure were. Well, yeah, like I said, hopefully the 49ers can, close this game out against the Patriots, show that they could do that. Let's look at just a couple of former 49ers on the Patriots today. We got Kendrick Bourne. He's on the PUP list, though, so no possibility that we see him. And also an obscure running back, Jermichael Hasty, is on the team. He actually got a carry last week in garbage time. And the buffest kicker Joey Sly, is also the Patriots kicker. So we'll probably see some of him in this one as well. Interesting enough, like last week, right? The Patriots playing against the Jets. They lost pretty badly in that game. And as we know, the 49ers did beat the Jets in week 1. I would like to think if the 49ers played the Jets today that they would still win. But honestly, I have no idea. In any case, I feel like the Patriots struggling right now. We said it last week. There's no excuses for the 49ers to lose the game against the Rams. They found a way, right? There's no excuse for the 49ers to lose this game against the Patriots. I mean, they literally had a pool of Jacoby Brissett in this game. They were getting dominated so bad. They wanted to see what Drake May could do. So he ended the game for them. But we'll probably see Jacoby Brissett again in this one. And I don't know, man. You just have to take advantage of teams that you're just simply better than. And even with all the injuries, I still think the 49ers are better than than the Patriots. So you have to find a way to win.
And the good teams do that. And this 49ers team doesn't always close people out, sadly. That's like a real, like they had, Kyle talked about it after the game. They had so many chances to put this game in a headlock, so many chances, and they never did it. And it's like, you're supposed to be the experienced team, the battle tested team. And instead it was Stafford and McVay on the other side saying, hey, just stay in it. Just find a way to stay in it and we'll figure it out. And the 49ers just, they don't have that mentality. And I don't know who it is, but it's lacking right now. And you can tell.
Yeah, I agree. So just Rob, hypothetically, if the 49ers do lose this game against the Patriots, are you prepared to call them a bad team?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how many, like, what do we
What else
have
can you
to
say?
see? Yeah. Like, you can't lose this game. You know, like, honestly, if they lose this game, I don't think they're making the playoffs. Like, that's what's
Oof.
potentially on the line if you're the 49ers. So you better come out and you better handle your business. You know, we keep thinking that they're a really good team, but they're kind of living off what they have done in previous years, including last year. What we have seen this year, they don't operate like a good team. Good teams don't have repeated special teams gaffes week after week. Good teams don't consistently get gashed on offense by the same exact things by multiple teams. Good things fix their issues. And right now, the 49ers haven't fixed any issues and don't seem capable of fixing any issues.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I'm not usually doom and gloom, but I'm not feeling too confident right now. I guess we'll just have to see what Sunday holds for this team. But yeah, they have a lot of changes to make before then, so hopefully they get it together. But Rob, thank you so much for joining me as always on a Wednesday. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Make sure you like this video if you haven't yet. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and also make sure you subscribe to Gold Standard Network. I do a weekly show there every Tuesday, Bully Ball. If you guys haven't heard of it, I'm sure you have. But, you know, not just Bully Ball, but all the other great shows that Rob does this week. You definitely want to check those out. Before I head out of here, though, got a super chat from Corey. Thank you, Corey. He says they're not the same player, but I cap when people say we haven't seen a guy like this before when talking about Brock Purdy. If you weren't there, Cap was talked about as if he were Mahomes before Mahomes. I love Kaepernick. Like I always thought he was underrated. I think people just didn't want to like him for whatever reason, and I think multiple times he showed why he was so good. And even today, like I think people try to discount and discredit how good he was because of the way his career ended with that final Harbaugh season, and also the Chip Kelly years as well. Chip Kelly, bad coach, like in the NFL. Maybe that was part of the reason why Kaepernick struggled, but make no mistake about it, Cap was like that dude. Like he was so good. I think people forget just how good he was. So I agree. Yeah, I think people forget, and I think Brock Purdy's a different type of good. And I think maybe that's why people talked about Cap the way they did, because he was a little unconventional even at that time. But he was talented.
Kaepernick's 10th career start was the Super Bowl. Like his rise came so fast, and I will never forget the feeling I had when he breaks that run against the Packers in the playoffs on the zone read, and he breaks the line, and you could tell he's going to go for a touchdown. And I remember thinking as he's running down the field into the end zone, like, we got a guy, like, this guy's a freak. Like, no one is catching this guy. He's running untouched down the sideline. He's firing lasers all over the field.
Yeah.
That jump throw against the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game, like, what? That's an absurd throw. It's thrown so hard, it goes right through Cam Chancellor's hands. He rips it through. I was like, my God, this guy is is we got a guy. We've got one of these freak guys. And we know why it didn't work out. I think you're right. People didn't want to like him. Remember, before the whole kneeling thing, remember there was that article that came out about, his tattoos. He looks like a prison inmate. And that's why he started kissing his bicep after the touchdowns, because he was kissing the tattoos. That's what he was responding to. So people didn't want to like him from the start, but he had a rise. He was the meteor, man. Burned super bright, super hot, super fast, super quickly.
Yeah, I wish we could have had more years like the glory years we had with Kaepernick. But yeah, I will make sure people do not forget how good he was for this team. And yes, he was throwing darts, he was throwing lasers, like he had a crazy arm. And yeah, I think he made that team way better. So yeah, Kaepernick, man.
He set the combine record for hardest ball when he was there. And NFL Network did a list of like the top 10 greatest playoff performances of all time. Kaepernick's on the list for that game against the Packers. Like, he ran for 181 yards. He ran for 181 yards.
It was historic. Yeah. And I'll never forget, I've mentioned it a couple times, but I'll never forget the Sports Illustrated cover after that game. And I think it said like "Holy cow" or something like that, and it just had a little face of Harbaugh. I think everyone was stunned. That was like his coming out party to the rest of the league in a way. So, and yes, I remember receivers would say like his throws were really hard to catch because he just threw absolute lasers. His issue was like he never really found touch on his throws. Like he would throw a check down like as a laser as well, and it was just so unnecessarily hard to catch. But man, his arm was insane.
I found the SI cover, Steph. If you add it to the, can you add it to the screen?
Oh yeah, I love I love this cover. It's
with the Harbaugh face. That's
one
so
of my
good.
favorites.
Yeah,
so
it was awesome, man. For like a real brief time. Remember he had the, I don't know if people don't remember this, the 90-yard touchdown run against the Chargers where he gets pass rush, he breaks through the line. Have you seen that play?
Which one?
The 90-yard touchdown run that Kaepernick had against the Chargers.
See, there goes my memory again.
He dusts Eric Weddle in the open field. There's one guy to beat. It's all pro safety Eric Weddle, and Kaepernick puts a move on him and just goes right down the field and absolutely
so fast.
He was
so fast.
He was damn impressive for a short period of time, man.
And I agree. I think he was kind of ahead of his time for that moment, right? Like, yeah, I think now with all the quarterbacks who can run, Cap would have fit right in. But yeah, thank you, Corey, so much for bringing that super chat and taking us down memory lane with Kaepernick, because it's always great to revisit that. But yeah, that's our show for today. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, not just mine, but Rob's as well. Turn on those notifications so you know when we go live. But for now, folks, have a good rest of your Wednesday. Peace.